Hello, everybody, and welcome to our monthly webinar going over the different aspects of the Aladtec scheduling software. Thanks for joining us here today. My name is Dave Snyder, one of the support specialists. I'm sure I've talked with most of you. And we got the whole gang here today helping out here with our webinar. We have Nadine and Nancy ready to answer your questions in the questions panel of the GoToWebinar. And of course, Jesse behind the scenes is our producer, making sure that everything keeps up and running. As per normal, today's session will last about 45 minutes with some Q&A at the end, and we're going to be focusing on a lot of different subjects today, all the latest system developments that have come down the road in the last year or so for the Aladtec system. We're going to cover some of the highlights of those. The webinar is being recorded, so if you signed up for it and you need to get away or you just couldn't make it or whatever, you will be linked to the recording of today's session, and it'll also be available in your help section of your own system in a day or so when they'll be out there. And you can take that link and you can share it with whoever you want to, even if they're not an Aladtec customer. So maybe share, especially this month's that's going to cover so many subjects, just to show them all the different areas and functions of what you can do with the system to people to see if it might work for them. So we're going to, let's get right to the subject matter of today and give you kind of all the teasers of what we're talking about here today. We're going to be talking about things like form categories, how to organize your forms into different folders, how you can assign different owners to be able to edit forms if need be. We'll be talking about the hourly editor, a lot of drag and drop and neat little shortcuts that I'll be showing you there to make it more efficient to manage your day-to-day. We'll be talking about time off in the system, how you're able to block certain dates from being requests for time off, and if there needs to be caps of how many people can ask for certain time off on certain days. Our latest release just this week even is expired date attributes and notifications, and we'll be showing all the details of that. Our security has been upgraded to allow only the member to see and manage their own passwords, and we'll show you how you as an admin can assist with that and get passwords reset for your members and how that flows through. We'll be looking at different elements of just smaller changes in access levels to allow more flexibility, to allow different people to have different authority within the system and delegate some tasks to them. And one of our bigger releases in the last year is coverage alerts, and we'll be showing you some small updates to that as well, and how you can manage those notifications that go out and give people their chance to sign up for shifts in order. And then, of course, the Q&A. So don't hold back your questions. Go ahead and submit them through the questions panel as you need be, and Nadine and Nancy will help us to answer the ones for you and maybe save some of those for the end so everybody can hear the answer and benefit all of us here. So, and if we don't get to your question, if there's a lot, don't worry about it. We will answer them even after the session is over. And if need be, you can, of course, take advantage of your free unlimited support with us, of course, anytime, and we can have a one-on-one session with you either on the phone or set up even a webinar such as this and just talk back and forth and look at your system and address your specific needs of what you need because it is customizable, so we can have different suggestions of what you can do. And don't forget to look for the survey at the end of today's session as well. We always like to hear more ideas and thoughts of what you'd like to see in these webinars and how you think it's going. So stick around for that after the webinar ends, if you can help us out with that. And speaking of the survey, one of the elements that has come out of those suggestions is in regards to me, and I know I have a fault on this, that I tend to move along really fast, and I tend to move the mouse around really fast and go through the system fast. So I'm going to be very conscious to kind of slow it back down and go through things a little more methodically there. So, okay, let's take a look at our sample system here and just get right into it through those categories and different elements that we're going to be talking about today. First one, form categories and form editors. You know, a lot of you may have a whole list of forms and that may continue to grow, and then you just notice that that form list got really long and it's alphabetical and it became really cumbersome to, manage and, weed your way through the list of forms. Well, now what we have in the system is the ability to assign categories so that they can have their own folders and make it a little easier to navigate. You can assign whatever labels you want, call them whatever you want, order them however you want. want. And that's all done through your setup area if you're a top level admin and can get in there and add those form categories. And if any form doesn't have a category, it will automatically drop into the uncategorized version. So you can see some miscellaneous, if you will, listed here. So how does that work? How do we assign categories once we have the categories set up in the setup there? We're going to go to the form configurator. Every form kind of lives in its own world, as you may know, through the settings of the particular form. You know, forms have their own permissions of who can see them, who can edit them, who the owners are, and of course the general form category. So if we click on the settings of a particular form in the form configurator, you can see the list of categories that are available to us via the list within the setup. And you can pick any one and it will fall into that category automatically. And then you can see it even automatically categorizes and organizes it right over here as well. So it's easier to navigate and get to the form that you want. And you can go to those settings and organize them as you wish. The permissions are listed here, of course, of who can submit a new form, who can see all forms, who can modify this form, notifications, and the other element that's new here is in administrators. So here's where you're basically assigning who are the cooks in the kitchen, who can come to the form configurator and edit the design of the form. Used to be only top level administrators and one owner. And now what we've done is expanded that just a little bit to allow other editors besides the owner to come into the form and make some changes. And you can do that, as you've seen, typically by work group, access levels, or even individual names. And you can just list them one by one. So those are designers basically of this form. Now I'm gonna just put out a warning out there that you know, it may be, we've seen it on more than one occasion that there may be too many cooks in the kitchen, and if they're not aware of what's going on, they may get in here and start deleting things that they shouldn't delete, and they can even delete the whole entire form. So be very cautious on that aspect of things, and it will warn you whenever you're deleting. It's going to warn you you're about to permanently delete this form. So don't be so quick to, you know, click through these pop-up boxes, you know, light boxes. They're there for a reason, to give you that second chance. Now, while we can recover the entire form, which I probably shouldn't even say, but you know, it's possible. If you come into the system and you want to start, you know, messing with the fields on the form and you just want to delete one, say you want to make a new form or you're reorganizing or you feel like you don't need a particular field anymore, be very careful, because again, you will be deleting that field and all the data will be removed from any prior submission. So you're going to lose it, and that's not recoverable. So what you're going to want to do very first thing is, as always, is if you're working in any application, do a save as, make a copy, save it as version 2, and work with the copy. Mess with the copy, and then nothing's happening to the one that's out there being used currently in production. So that's just a good safety tip there on that one. So there's form categories and form ownerships and editors within the forms. Let's jump over to the hourly editor and show you some of those tricks in there. That's under schedules here. We're going to go to the hourly editor. We're in our sample system as a sample TLA member here, Joe Burns. And let's just say we have the police station schedule here for today. Now, you may be aware, of course, that you can come into any of these shifts and the little arrows pop up on the left and right. There's lots of drag and drop options, right? You can adjust any shift length that you want. You can even pick up Steve and move him to different areas here if need be, right? And you'll see, oh, there's a little preview of what's to come there. You'll see the little, when you hover and then you just over to the right and it turns yellow behind it, that's where it's going to go. And now what you'll notice here is that even over the block time, it turns yellow, which means I can snap Stephen right over the top of that block time. And it's going to ask me, oh, do you want to overwrite that block time? Okay. And then it really does that. You don't have to remove the block time first. You can just drop Steve right on top of it. And it'll even do it right over Jim there, right? You can even drop it over people or even partial of the people, right? And Jim will just, his shift will be shortened there. So there's a quick little way to manage some things there. And there's even a neat drag and drop functionality here from the bottom from your member availability. If you're looking to say, put somebody in on this patrol officer shift here on the first part of the day, you could choose Matt or Sue or whoever, and then or pick from the drop down here and then just add them in as you normally would, right? Well, now what you can do is you can grab people right from this list. Make sure you're highlighting the position you want. Let's go down to the next one here for another example, and let's just grab K. You can grab K with your mouse now. Grab and hold with your main button on your mouse, and you can see I'm picking up K, and it's going to go right up here, and it knows that I'm only trying to fill with the black line there between 7 and 15, and it'll just fill it in, and K just drops in. And then you can adjust that if necessary and do it again, and then you'll see that it moves over to the next shift, and now we can just put Lisa there, and then we could put Anthony on the other one. So you could really fill in your schedule really quickly for the day with all the open spots. And if it fills it in and it's too much, that's fine. You can adjust it. Maybe you want to put Anthony in the first half of the day, and you can do that. So there's some quick shortcuts there on how to drag and drop, the expanded drag and drop functionality there. Let's look at a special event schedule here. So I'm going to go up to my filters here, and I've already pre-saved this. So this is pretty neat. You can just pre-save it, and it automatically knows that I want to show the special event training schedule because I've already preset it through the edit link here, and I've done a save, right? And I saved my own personal filter that I can use at another time. Now, on special events and trainings, most of you have worked with these, I'll bet, and it's all blocked out every day. And then on certain days, there are special events, and some days you need 1 or 2 people, some days you need a whole 6, and sometimes it's in the middle of the day. So if we need some volunteers today, the schedule starts at 7, and maybe we want a shift here from like noon to 5. Well, it used to be, you still can do this. You would need to slide that over here, hold on to that volunteer spot, add block time from the member drop down here, and add block time on the other side between 7 and noon, right? And surround that open time so you get the open slot there from noon to 5. Well, now what you can do is there's a little shortcut to do that, so you don't have to go through all those steps. You'll notice here on the member drop down list down here, once you choose another one, there's another, basically an additional member to your system, and we're calling that member open time. So now you can just tell the system, where do you want the open time? I want them open time between noon and 5, right? And you'll add it, and it just adds the chunk right there in the middle. So instead of just using the building blocks and opening up what's in the middle, you can just do that on one line using the open time member that's right here. So you can either add open time or you can add block time to wherever you want on any given day. Now, if you just kind of think and conceptualize, what that really means to the overall system, open time is really just the day-to-day one-time version of your other tools that are in the system of repeats and rotations, and open time applies to date range delete, meaning you're deleting block time. That's essentially what we're doing with that open time. We're removing the block time from that chunk. Now, if you want to do that over a range or over multiple occasions down the road, if I need to have every Wednesday open or every Friday open for football, or 4 days in a row, and I got to open up 20 spots 4 days in a row, you can do that all in one fell swoop using date range delete, and you're just deleting the block time member and being specific about where that block time is going to get removed from. Repeats and rotations is adding, of course, over a range. Date range delete is the tool to take it off in a range. Okay, so there's some quick tips on the hourly editor. Let's get into our setup area here and look at some changes within there. That's the link in the upper left, of course. And we're going to go to the setup here. And for this segment, we're going to be talking about time off. Now, in time off, there was a big request to say, how do I restrict time off? I don't want certain days to be asked for time off. I don't even want to, review it if it's a holiday or whatever reason. Everybody's got to work that day. Nobody can ask for it off, kind of a thing. So, with each of your time off types now, you have the ability to give it either daily limits or assign block dates. Daily limits on vacation time we have here is we're saying no more than 5 members can be on vacation on any one given day without admin approval. Now, these are the same warnings that I'm sure some of you have seen within the work groups area and work limits. So we keep it consistent across the software, of course, and we can either say, hey, when somebody's asking for time off on a particular day and it's more than 5, does it show a warning, which they can just okay through? It's just a warning. Does it require admin approval? Like most vacation does, but it's an added level of approval to make sure that we can get over the 5. Or does it need to be a hard and fast rule where nobody can authorize it? Nobody can override it. We can never have more than 5 off on a given time for vacation. Now, these rules do apply to each type and across all schedules. They're not specific to schedules. This is just for vacation time over the whole entire system. So if you have different departments, it may be that we need to break out some different time off types for different departments and things. But there's some options there. So to apply to your system, we can talk about. Block dates is just really just restricting the day to not allow time off requests to even happen. You can see in here I've added in the 4th of July and Thanksgiving. And you can add as many dates as necessary for each of your types as needed. Now, what does this mean in terms of how it looks for your members? Well, let's go look at that. I'm going to go be, let's see who I got. I got Steve. I'm going to be Steve. And if Steve was looking at the schedule, for his own calendar here, my schedule, and he's looking down the road here and he says, I'd really like to have Friday off. And he can just click on that and request that time off and say, well, I'd like to take some vacation. And now it's going to say, oops, wait a minute, what is this? Warning will cause the violation of, can't have more than 5. And then he can go ahead and, push that up to be reviewed, and the admin will see the same warning before they decide to approve or deny that particular request. Now, what happens if, say, we get down into November and where he's looking to ask off for Thanksgiving? He's going out of town or whatever it happens to be, and he can request that day off and ask for vacation. And now it's going to say this overlaps with the block dates and it's not allowed. So you can see he can't even get past this to even request it, because according to the system, vacation time's not allowed for that particular date and time. So you could set that for, as I said, for each of your different types. All right, let's talk about the next one here. The new release from this week, which we're excited about, is in regards to expired attributes from date expiring fields within the system. We're going to go back to be our members here, and we're going to be looking at the member database configurator. Now, what we're talking about here is this is the member database configurator, kind of like your member profile form that your admins, of course, can edit and make it look like whatever they wish. And one of the elements that we can add in here is a date expiration field. So you've seen this before, where certain dates can be flagged as an expiring date. You see the little EXP after it. Some date fields don't have it, but some do. And on the system, if we were looking at the home screen, it was always here as a reference for an admin to say how many people already have an expired date and how many people are going to be expired within the next 30 days. This 30, this number, is customizable by you in your system. You can make that 30, 45, 60, 90, whatever it needs to be. And you can even click on any of these to get a little mini report, if you will, of every person with their expired dates. And maybe you need to kind of go after them and say, hey, make sure you get your CPR up to date. Now, what we have added within the system now is the ability to have restrictions on those dates that maybe even, it doesn't allow the person to necessarily be able to sign up for a shift and get on to work if they have an expired particular field. And this is all controlled through the definition of the field within the member configurator here. And we can see this is a date expiration field, what it's called, if it's required or hidden. And now we have this added piece of an expired date, and you get those same rules basically of what happens when you add this person to the schedule, or if they're submitting extra hours and they're signing up for a shift and their date is expired. What happens at that point? You could just ignore it. By default, they're just ignore it. It's just like it was before, and it just, blows by it. Does it show a warning? Meaning, again, it shows them a warning that, hey, or the admin saying, hey, this person's not going to be has an expired CPR. Are you okay with that? And you can just click through it. And then if they were, say, signing up for a shift, does it look at them and say, well, you can't have that shift necessarily until an admin approves it because you have an expired CPR certification? Or again, do you just not allow it? Maybe you have a union contract of some kind, or a policy that says, hey, we can't have you working if it's not up to date. So with each of these expiring fields, you can do the same thing and set the different levels needed on that. So what does that look like for your members? Let's look at that. We're going to be Jim here for a minute. And Jim wants to go into the schedule, and he's looking ahead, and he wants to turn on his open shifts. And there are a lot of them just because it's a sample system here. You may not have as much in yours. Now, if we were to say go into Saturday and we go to a particular, let's just say he's getting a side job and he wants to sign up for a particular shift. Well, look what happens here. This will cause you to be scheduled with an expired CPR certification. So it's going to, it can get submitted, but again, it's going to go to the admin and they'll see that same warning and then decide if they want to allow that sign up and let you work that shift or not. Now, what happens now with those particular notifications when those dates are approaching or when they do get expired? Now the system will push those notifications out of the system. And you as the member here, by default, they will be turned on. This is one of the new alerts here that are in the profile for each member. And members, we defaulted turning this on. It's the member that really has to be responsible for their own certifications, right? And they're going to have it turned on just like we do for coverage alerts. And you'll see it's grayed out there that it's going to be automatically turned on. So when it's within 30 days, when it hits the 30-day mark, it's going to send Jim a notice saying, hey, your CPR is due. And then in another 30 days, when it actually expires, it's going to send one more message saying, hey, your CPR certification is expired now. Those are the only two messages. It's not going to ping you every day until you do it. So it's a push notification that gets out to email and text, and they'll get that. Now, how this is controlled, let's just, there are the cases where certain systems where they don't want those messages going out. The TLA, the top level admin, has the ability to turn these off for each person. So if I was Joe Burns and I went into the member database here and I went to Jim and hover over his name and edit the member, I can go down to the expiring fields and I can turn them off for Jim if I want. Now, what the admin has on their end of things too is they are also notified of the same reminders at the time that it is expiring and the time that it is expired. So for Joe Burns, when he looks at his own notifications, these are in regards to his own certifications and date expiring fields. But now there is, of course, the admin notification box here, table, and there's an added column here now for expired fields. And maybe it's the case where, Jim doesn't necessarily want everybody's notification every time. Maybe it's a battalion chief or a captain of a particular shift, and you can still say, just like any of the other notifications, hey, I only need to see my A shift people. That's the only I don't need to see everybody's. I just need to see certain groups, or if it needs to be based on access level, we can do that too. So just like other notifications, those will be turned on for the admins, and the admins will always be able to, go into the system and again see that same information right on the dashboard here of expired information. And you can see that as you're looking at the member database. They'll be listed here. Each section has its own pre-saved system filter here. This is the section headers, titles. There's a certification section, and you can see some dates that are due to expire coming up within 30 days. They're kind of gold, greenish sort of there. And if they are expired, they're red. And here's a great place where you can do some updating, right? You can, come down to Steve and say, oh, he updated it this month. I can just come down here and just update it. He's good now for another year, let's say. You can just save that. And now that date is updated for Steven and he won't get those warnings anymore. And you can batch edit people if you need to do it all at once for multiple people at the same time. All right, let's take a look at password management. One of the elements that we've updated here is you've seen on the My Info page, this password field used to be open. And it used to be, dotted out so you couldn't see the actual password, but admins used to be able to set passwords for members. Well, we've updated now to be in compliance just for updated security purposes, where only the member has the ability to see and manage their own password, so that there are no backdoors, no ways for admins to log in as their members and, just to protect all that information for the person. So what we've had now in here is the ability to reset the password, and it's going to send them an email to their primary email listed here on their profile. And it'll be very important for each of your members to have a primary email in the system, a valid primary email, so that they can reset their own password, or an admin can reset it for them via the link right here, and just send it out, and it will go to their email that only theoretically they have access to, and they'll be able to click on the link and come up with their own password and have it there. Now, this is how you can reset any password for a member. What happens when you get a new member? You're an admin, you're in the member database, you get new people that come in all the time, and you're adding a new person. Well, if I give them an email, how do I set their login and password? I used to be able to do that. Well, you can still set the login. And now what you could do is there's a generate password option here for any brand new person. Let's see if I can find one here quick. I don't think any of these people are actually new. Maybe so. I'll just use Joe as an example here. So when I click on Joe's name, and instead of sending him a general message here, I can generate a password. Yeah, he's already logged in before. What that generate password is really generate an initial password. It's like a welcome email. Welcome to the system. Here's the shortcut. Here's the link you can save on your other devices. And here's the link to go set up your password. So they'll be able to set up a password at that point once they get that welcome email. And you can do it for multiple people at once. If they have a valid email, you can see it'll tell you if they don't have a primary email, but it will just allow you to batch, send out, and generate those passwords for all your new members when they initially get added. The key being they have a valid primary email, so keep that in mind. Once they get that welcome email, we've extended the length of time that they get. In order to do that, it used to be 48 hours, and now we've extended that out to 2 weeks. So that link will be live for 2 weeks to allow them to get in there and generate a password and get it all set up and be finished. If it's after 2 weeks, then you'll have to send out a new generated password welcome email. So there's some updates there in the member database for security on passwords. Let's go back into our setup area here and talk about just kind of some general settings here within the setup area. You will notice that we've rearranged things a little bit. Down over here on the left, the different categories. We mentioned this earlier in the webinar here in regards to forms. That's the only thing in there is your form categories that you can edit, of course, and relabel as needed. You can pick them up and move them around and reorder the different categories there and folders, if you will, or you can add new ones. You'll notice if you're a system that uses the time clock that used to be up in here, we moved it down here along with our integrations piece to allow you to adjust your time clock settings in another area here, because that is one of the items that is an add-on feature of the system that actually generates an extra subscription cost along with integrations. So if we can do a little promotion here, if you do happen to have any other systems that you're using, give it a second to load up here. And if any of these particular if you will use things like emergency reporting, workforce management tools, you're able to get into set up a integration with those companies and allow Aladtec to be the source for that information, and you can have it actually feed the information from Aladtec over to these other companies and save yourself some time of double entry and efficiencies there. So if any of these logos here look familiar to you and you're using any of these, give us a call. Let's talk about it, and we can talk about how we can make some efficiencies for your system and your day-to-day. So those are some good possibilities there. Let's talk about specifically the access levels within the system. We've added some new options here in the access levels to allow you to delegate some authority to some of your members. In regards to the setup area itself, this always comes up in the case of, say, a day-to-day scheduler who is not a top level administrator, but they still need to get in here and make some changes to their schedule, right? They need to add a position, they need to change the time, and that's not necessarily a high level security risk kind of a thing. But the setup area here was basically initially set up to only top level administrators could get in there. That was the only category of access that was able to get into the setup. Well, now what we've added in the system under each access level is an extra checkbox. If we go to the scheduler here and we go a little bit down and we go to the editing authority section here, there is an extra checkbox for the system setup. Now, what that'll do is allow that person to get into the setup area and have access to everything except access levels, right? That's really the big piece of authority that, they dictate who can do what. Well, if they have access to the setup area here, that's the part that they don't see, that they can't see. So it'll look just like this without the access level piece, so that they can add a holiday, change a schedule, add a category of time off, change a rule for their group, whatever they need to kind of do without having to interrupt the top level administrator and get them on their own and make the change for them. Another piece that's been kind of separated out is in reports. You'll notice here that you allow viewing of general reports, and there is a breakdown between all members, and you'll see this option all over too, for only members that they have scheduling authority. Well, what does that mean? That means, just like scheduling authority, it's basically dictating down the road what information that they can see based on their scheduling authority. Right now, the scheduler has authority over all these stations, but not necessarily screenings or trainings or OT events or dispatchers, right? They just have kind of all the police stations and fire stations, if you will. And that means they can, work with those schedules and do what they need to with those schedules and everything involved with that. And that includes reports. And if I say only for members that they have that scheduling authority, they're only going to see that information. They won't see the dispatcher schedule and those reports. So it automatically will filter that out for them. And then one big report here under the reports tab here is the system log, one of my favorite pieces personally. It's the ultimate activity audit trail of everything that happens within the system, right? Everything, and then detailed account of what has been changed. So that piece is we've discovered has kind of been a little bit of a security risk as well, because if you have access to the system log, you may have access to information that you don't necessarily need to have access to see. Hidden fields in the member database or member information from, say, dispatchers or whatever it happens to be. So what we've done is kind of separate that out. Maybe you don't need to have the whole activity of the system log at your disposal. You can get your reports for all your scheduled needs and your day-to-day and payroll and everything like that, but you don't need to see absolutely everything that's going on in the system log. So we've separated that out as an extra piece of authority within the access level here. The other thing we've broken out that just kind of follows the same pattern of what we've had in here before is, of course, the ability to approve your own time off, right? That's been here all along. If you don't want your schedulers who are working with the schedule and they happen to be on those same schedules, you don't want them approving their own time off. It has to go up the chain. It has to go up to your top level or whoever it is to make sure that somebody approves their time off. Well, we have the added feature in our system of extra hours, which allows members to submit basically shifts in the past and report them to your admins to make sure they get paid for training or court or overtime, or they stayed late on a shift and they got to get, it's a report that they get paid for that. Same goes for these extra hours requests. You can make it so that they prevent those admins from approving their own. Even though that they could just go in there and add themselves to the schedule, they're in charge of the schedule. They can put themselves on the schedule if they want, in the past, in the future, whenever. But when it comes through an extra hours request, if that's a formal process and needs to get approved, so it's recorded, you can make sure that they don't approve their own. That's the point of that. Okay, let's talk about coverage alerts since we're in setup here as well. Let's look at the coverage alert option. And a lot of you have taken advantage of this, and we appreciate that. Now, what this means, of course, is when you have an opening in the system in the future, and instead of calling everybody one by one, you have a coverage alert option where you can batch send an alert by email and text to everybody that's available and say, hey, can you work? And we'll take everybody that can work here, in the next day or hour or whatever it is, and they can come in and sign up for a shift. You can batch send that out to a whole group of people at once. What our coverage alert staggered alert profiles here do is, if you have a system in place where overtime has to be given within a certain order and give a fair and balanced process to allow certain people to accept a shift before others, that's what this is, right? You're putting people in a particular order based on whatever the criteria might be, their date of hire, their availability, their overtime that they already have, and you can have it broken out into multiple sorting categories, so you can have all those tiebreakers. I need to go down the road and choose members based on how many overtime hours they have already, ascending. So the lowest amount of overtime will be offered at first by pay period, and then the tiebreaker will be their seniority date, right? Their date of hire. So you can apply different rules to that. And what happens is an alert will go out to the first person on the list, and they'll have 30 minutes to basically accept or deny or do nothing for that particular shift. That shift is locked out for everybody except that member at that time during that window of 30 minutes. Now, we've done a whole webinar on that in the past, along with a lot of these other subjects. So if you want to look in the help section, it'll dive deep into much more examples and situations and setup options of what goes on within the coverage alerts here, along with all the other things we've talked about here today too. So make sure you check out your help section here for those videos. What we've kind of improved and found out is we've allowed different time segments for these coverage alerts to happen, all the way down to 7 minutes. So the window of time is cut down to 7 minutes. Now, that being said, 7 minutes is not a lot of time, right? Once the person, it generates the email and the text and it goes out, first it has to get delivered, and it goes through our system and gets right out there, and it gets to the carrier. And then based on where you are and what carrier traffic is at that time, it may take up to a minute or two or even longer to get to that person on their device. And then they have to really be Johnny on the spot and basically be there seeing the request come up in their face to be able to get into that 7-minute window and sign up for that shift. Because if it passes them by and the 7 minutes are over, it automatically goes to the next person, and then they're locked out. That person would be locked out. The other thing, we recommend a little longer time. The other thing we've changed here is when those messages get sent. Because if you have, like, say, 30 minutes or an hour and you have 30, 40 people, well, guess what? It's going to go 24 hours a day, even overnight. What we got is feedback saying, hey, my guys are asleep. How can they get an alert and have a fair chance at an overtime shift when they're sleeping and they're not going to see the alert? Well, now we've set it where you can manage the time of day of when it's sent. I think this date of hire, let's see, I didn't have the example here. So now we can say, let's just send it out between 7 and let's just say 7 at night, just for the main 12 hours of the day, let's just say. So messages and alerts will only go out between 7 and 7, and then at 7 at night, all activity basically stops, and then it waits till 7 the next morning to send out the next alert for the next person. So it gives everybody a fair and balanced chance during day hours. So you can set those time ranges for each of these profiles. And that, of course, is triggered through the schedule itself with the little blue envelope on the particular days that have you opening, or you can hover over the schedule name and send out a coverage alert that way as well. Dictate which groups get notified and so forth, and have those profiles set. Okay, we've covered a lot of detail, and like I said, there's a deeper detail on a lot of these subjects that we've talked about here today in the help section in the videos, and we've even done webinars even on some of these subjects like coverage alerts and things like that. So take advantage of what's out there already to hear a little bit more about that. And of course, you can contact us if you just have questions and just want to skip over all that. So I think basically this time we're rolling right along here. I'm going to take a look quick at the question panel here, and I'm going to just I'm going to take advantage of that and just review some of this for just a moment here. If you give me a moment. All right, we've gotten a lot of good questions out there. Uh, Excellent, and looks like Nadine and Nancy have taken care of quite a bit of these. This is excellent. So thanks everybody for participating in today's webinar and asking questions. And look at that. Looks like they've kind of taken care of most of them here. I don't really have any questions. So if you have any questions, we have a couple minutes here. Please feel free to post them out there in the questions panel and the GoToWebinar panel. And if you want to save them for after and call us after, that's fine too. I should mention here, I always mention this as well, our contact page that has our email, our phone number that you can call, and we've been kind of touting this new chat bubble here as well, of course. So make sure you take advantage of that because we're monitoring that during the day too. If you don't want to call or email or talk, you can just get to us right directly through your keyboard here and just start chatting with us, and we'll be able to get in touch with you that way too. Oh, here's a question. Regarding the coverage alerts that we just covered here. So Josh was asking coverage alerts for just part-time employees. Excellent question. Yes, you can do that. Basically, you just need to tell the system who the part-time employees are via one of the fields or an employee type or whatever it happens to be. And let's just go down to, say, the dispatcher here later down. And if we don't need all these positions, let's just, this is just the coverage alert basics of 1, 2, 3. And if I select a particular shift, in the middle here is where you're going to dictate what group of people this gets sent to. By default, it's going to go to everybody. Everybody that's qualified to work that spot and is available to work, it's going to go to them. And you can add people that are already on the schedule, include people that are on time off, or you can break it out and select the recipients by group or access levels or even individual names. So here's an example of where you could say, I don't want it to go to everybody. I just want it to go to the part-time people. So if you have them identified via one of the groups or access levels, you can single them out and give them first crack at it, so to speak. That's what a lot of people do in terms of ABC shift. If it's a C shift and all the C shift guys are taken, then you just send it to the A and B, that kind of thing. Or if it's just a volunteers, or if you have like I said, a union contract or a policy document that says they need to hit a certain group of people first before others, you can certainly do that. So I hope that answers your question. And then over here is where you choose which profile it's going to follow and what list. Can you send out a coverage alert to a shift that's been filled? No. That's one of the keys of the coverage alert, is that the shift must be open and in the future. It can't be something that's happened yesterday. So you'll see that on the schedule here. Basically, if I turn on some different options on things here, any shift, any day with a shift with an opening in the future will have the little blue envelope here. So you'll see, like on the 15th, there isn't one because there are no open shifts. But we have open shifts on the police station here, so I can send out a coverage alert on that day. So yes, it has to be open. If you need to utilize other positions to kind of have as a holding place, block time people, otherwise you can certainly do that. Okay, let's go back to my list here and see if there's anything else I missed. Don't forget the survey at the end of our webinar here today. We appreciate your input and feedback on anything. Hopefully I slowed things down enough for you to follow. I made the mouse pointer a little bigger to make that easier to see as well. And if you want have any ideas, of course, if you need to let us know of things you'd like us to cover, we want to hear about that too. Make sure you just let us know via the same communications tools I pointed out before: email, phone, or chat, or otherwise when you talk to us. And we have these webinars every month now, the second Thursday of every month. And if you want to just get on the list right now, and you don't even have to attend because you'll get that link with the recording on it and everything. The link is in our chat window on the GoToWebinar panel there as well, so you can take advantage of that. So I think that pretty much wraps up a lot of the system developments that we've been releasing over time here, and there's more in the hopper, so there'll be more to review here hopefully in the next month or two, and some exciting stuff on the horizon, so keep your eyes open for that. Thank you for joining us here today, of course, and thank you to all the staff providing support for us and this as well. Nadine and Nancy with the questions, and Jesse helping me out with production and getting everything up to speed and making sure it's all good. Remember, you have your help section and us to fall on whenever you need to, and we can certainly talk through your needs and set it up as you wish. And if it's not there, we can certainly take down that information as well. So we wish everybody a good week. Hope everybody is safe and healthy. Thank you for being customers. Thank you for joining us here today, and we'll see you down the road. Thank you very much.